All right, so we're back. So there are different levels of laws and regulations, and the supreme law under which everything falls in the United States is the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. So you may have heard, oh, that's unconstitutional. Well, no law can violate the Constitution, period. And so everything has to fit under the Constitution. Is the Constitution fixed? No. There are many amendments to the Constitution. I would argue that it's something that's not likely to happen at this point in history. I don't see the will or the interest to modernize the Constitution in any way right at the moment. But I would also argue that there are some things in the Constitution that probably should be modernized at some point. The Constitution was written a very, very, very long time ago, and many of the amendments to the Constitution were really about human rights, civil rights, perhaps some other rights and protections for the most part that were in some way left out or weren't properly worded in the original Constitution. But what we have now is the supreme law. Under that law, we have the federal and state laws, which we'll get into in a moment. But laws in general are rules that are adopted by elected officials. And the actual meaning of that law changes by court interpretation. So we have three branches of government: the executive branch, which is the President of the United States; the legislative branch, which is our Senate and our House of Representatives; and our judicial branch, or the court system. At the federal level, there are federal courts and the Supreme Court, plus courts of appeal as well. At the state level, it's very similar. We have a governor, we have a state legislature, and we have our state courts of appeal, and our state Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of California. And all of that falls underneath the umbrella of the federal level. And we also have county and city level. So federal, state, county, city. And they each are organized in a very similar way. So these elected officials are Congress or state legislature or county board of supervisors or city council. Again, going down the list of levels, we elect those people and they write laws and regulations with the intent to represent the people in their constituency, people they are representing. And it's not just people, it's businesses, it's lobbyists and other special interests. And they do their best, usually, to write something that is going to be a new rule to protect somebody. Food safety, you must follow these rules in order to keep consumers safe. And the law is usually really short by comparison of the regulation. And the regulation is, all right, here's the law, you must do a bunch of things to be safe. How do you do that? Regulations can be a lot longer, a lot more detailed, because now you've got all kinds of different businesses. I'm talking food safety. I've got restaurants and food manufacturing facilities and grocery stores and vendors on the street corner. And I've got agricultural production facilities. I've got transportation, I've got cooling. I've got all these different things that deal with just food. There's a lot of rules. So regulations tend to be a lot more wordy. And almost every law has regulations. And so there's some agency in charge of those regulations. That agency is going to exist because a law says you shall exist. And that agency is then in charge of applying, enforcing the rules, and working out the details of the regulation. So, for example, I'll stick to food safety since I've been talking about it already, but the federal government, as well as some state legislatures, have written laws about food safety. And the laws say you must do this list of things in order to keep people safe. They also will say that there must be some organization, some appointed organization that is going to make sure that you follow the rules and tell you what the details of those rules are, the regulations. And so the USDA, the US Department of Agriculture, exists because a law says it is a responsibility of the federal government to have the United States Department of Agriculture. That's one of their responsibilities. There's a law that says that. Under that law, there are tasks that the USDA must do. Now, we don't elect the USDA. The USDA is federal employees. The head of the USDA is appointed by the president. And there are lots of different departments, and they work with industry, they work with the public, they work with schools and individuals and farmers and business owners, and try to work out how are we going to comply with these food safety laws? What are the specific regulations going to be? So, federal laws all should fall within and be compatible with the United States Constitution. And we call those the United States codes. Federal laws are called codes, and Congress is who adopts these. Generally, it goes first through the House of Representatives, and then it goes to the US Senate. If they're both approved, it goes to the president for signing. And if the president signs it, everything happens, it becomes a new law. President doesn't sign it, well, it can go back to Congress, and the president's veto or lack of approval can be overridden by a majority, or actually it's a 2/3 majority of the Senate. And so once they have those laws in place, then they have to say somewhere in the law who or which agency is going to regulate that law. At the state level, they're also called codes, the California codes. Every state has their list of codes. You can search, and I actually have a link for the California codes. And we have our legislature. We also have something in California called the ballot initiative, propositions. And I'm going to go on a little side note here. The idea of propositions were because grassroots efforts were often being ignored by our legislature. And so the ballot initiative process, the proposition process in California, was adopted as a way for the citizens to get a voice in saying, we think this is important. We think this should be part of the rules of the codes for California. I was in full support of the ballot initiative concept. Unfortunately, I would argue that in more modern times, in recent years, it's been really stolen by special interests and big money interests. And it's really hard to tell the difference between a grassroots, by the people ballot initiative or proposition and a special interest or a particular business interest or financial interest trying to just change things to get their way. And so it takes a lot of work on our part. And I vote yes on quite a few ballot initiatives. I vote no on quite a few as well. It depends. But I would say you really have to do your homework now more than ever, because the not only the candidates for our legislature or Congress at the federal level, but also these ballot initiatives and our laws, they're given names that are totally misleading to manipulate the emotions. They are being sold to us as though they are for the people, when sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So I would encourage you to learn not only about the ag laws and regulations, but also learn about your own local and state government and learn how the whole thing works. Understand it. Get involved, do a little research, learn who you can trust. If I have a hard time with certain ballot initiatives or propositions or candidates or something, I will go to certain sources to try to see what they say. Sources that, to me, have become trustworthy sources. Anyway, enough on that. At the county level, we have things, instead of codes, our laws at the county level are called ordinances. And counties, all that I know of, have a board of supervisors. It may be different in some states, but every place I've ever known of it, they have their board of supervisors, again, elected officials. And there are also county ballot initiatives, which at the state level, we call them propositions. At the county level, and the city level, it kind of depends. So don't worry about it. But it's essentially a ballot initiative where if enough people will sign a petition saying, yes, we want to vote on this, it makes it to the ballot and you vote on it in your local county jurisdictions. And the same thing in the city level. But at the city level, the ordinances are adopted by the city council. Again, at every level, it's elected officials. So let me take another quick break